Whoa. Hi, Scorpio. Welcome to your April 2020 Life Path reading. It's Raina here. So, I'm revisiting a type of reading that I've done before, just because you have to understand. Well, first of all, let me finish that other thought, just because I think the time is right for this. I think that a lot of people have been experiencing change that they never expected. And even some of the astrologers, psychics, whatever, who come on YouTube, who do, these types of readings about talking about what may happen, even they probably were caught by surprise. I was just thinking yesterday that these that this shutdown occurred after Mercury retrograde. You'd think it would be more appropriate during it, but Mercury is finally out of its shadow as of a couple of days ago. So I suspect that things are going to start to speed up. Even if there still is a general shutdown, I think that people are going to start getting into more of a mentality of looking forward. And I think this is really good, because that will push those in what I call limited power to bend to the will of the people and, allow life to continue. Maybe in some places it is pretty much how it always has been. I have to just speak for myself, I guess. But in any case, the reason I was laughing about the Hermit is that I have drawn this card for this exact position, the first position, in at least 2 other readings, at least. And that, if you think about statistics, that is quite extraordinary, because I've shuffled the cards and I'm still getting this card. I'll talk about what each position means after I have done it. Pick an additional card. Okay. And given the current circumstances, maybe the Hermit, maybe it makes perfect sense why I've picked it many times. Oh, and before I continue, these readings are intended to be a philosophical, I guess you would call it, look at your life at its current point. Which doesn't mean that I won't talk about career matters or relationship matters, but it's more looking at it from the higher level. What is it that you need right now that maybe you've been ignoring, or you don't know if you deserve it, or something like that? And just to let you know, with this kind of mentality in mind, I do a natal chart version of it. It's going to be different, because it's going to be, with the natal chart, it's more like exact, if you will, in terms of, even certain career paths. If somebody's at a crossroads and they don't really like what they're doing, but they're kind of confused as to what they should be doing, it can kind of tell people. I often say validate, because I think people do know what they want to do. They just don't give themselves permission to do it. I think that's what, and I think that the chart is great, because it's not me saying it. It's like I'm showing something that they came into this lifetime, and that it's right for them. That they don't have to apologize for wanting to do something other than what their parents wanted them to do, or what makes the most money, those kinds of things. Now, with this reading, I want you to just think about where you're at and where you want to be. This is the first position. It's supposed to be where you're at. The Hermit card, I was making a joke about, all of us being hermits to one degree or the other. It's about staying apart from others, but you see the lantern with the star inside. And to me, the best way of putting the hermit is soul searching. The soul being the light, the inner light, but also the higher self that's always connected to God. You could call it the higher mind, that has that divine intelligence. And divine intelligence will make it so that you're more likely to follow what really feels right, not what is the most pragmatic, makes the most money, whatever, has the most positions available, is in the highest demand. No, because if you're not happy going into a job that has the highest demand, you're going to make money, but you're going to spend that money trying to escape your reality in one way or the other. And it's so much better to wake up every day and feel like you're comfortable in your own skin. You're doing things that you want to be doing, for the most part, obviously. We don't always like what we're doing, I'm sure. I'm sure that would be unrealistic to like everything we do. But yeah, where you feel comfortable waking up. And when I see the hermit, I don't know if it's not really like a monk. I'm sure that I'm not up on my terminology when it comes to hermits and monks. I mean, maybe every monk is a hermit, but not every hermit is a monk, is the best way of putting it. But I'll just say a monk. When I think of a monk, one of the things that a monk does, I don't know about a vow of poverty, because I don't like the idea of poverty, but I would say a vow of simplicity. And maybe your life is too complicated right now. Maybe you need to do something to pare down so that you don't have those financial obligations that suck away your time. There's something called time poverty, where people have a lot of money, but they don't have a lot of time. Well, does that make a lick of sense? How can you, what are you saving it for? And so anyway, it's looking at these questions from a deeper level. What is my life? Am I happy with my life? And as I said in other readings, because I'm talking about myself, even though none of these hermit cards were connected to mine. I think that I'm a Sag, and I might have gotten it for Sag, I'm not sure. But the point being, because I used as an example, I think it was Sag too, but the point being that in my own life, I saw myself gradually getting to this point over time. It didn't come overnight. So this may be the same with you, Scorpio, is that it hasn't come overnight. And the reason that this is important is that even though I'm doing this for April, it doesn't mean that all these cards, especially the first one, which is, your current status, is something that has just happened. It could be something that has been in the making for years. And because of that, it means that you have to look at your life from the perspective of, what's right for you. The hermit allows somebody to tune into themselves. That's what solitude is all about. When we're with other people, it's so much easier to get influenced by them. Scorpio is one of the signs that I would peg as not being like that in general, because Scorpio, this is one of the things I admire about Scorpio people, is they tend to have their own mind, they're very, I was going to use the word extreme about their opinions, and even if some other people don't like how they view life, they can't deny that the person is self-assured. And that's a good way of putting Scorpios. I think Scorpios tend to be self-assured. You don't see many Scorpios who come across as insecure. And they may hide any vulnerability very well. Now, deep down inside, things may be a little bit different. We have to look at the moon. If your moon is in Libra, if your moon is in Pisces, Cancer, maybe a couple of other signs, you may have more of an emotional need for approval. And same with inner planets in Libra, which is adjacent to you. You could easily have Venus and or Mars or Mercury in Libra, and approval becomes more important to you. Also, if your sun is very close to Libra, if it's in one of the early degrees of Scorpio. So anyway, that's what's happening with that. And then we have where you want to be, Queen of Pentacles. Now, I was just, as soon as I was talking about paring down your life, I was like, wait a second, how am I going to spin this when we have Queen of Pentacles, which can be like kind of that Earth Mother, enjoying the comforts of your castle type of person. Well, yes, the Queen of Pentacles can be a very homemaker, Susie homemaker kind of an individual. But this doesn't mean that even in the context of somebody who is perhaps working too much and feeling like life doesn't have meaning to them, that certainly doesn't mean that they want to just give up everything. But it's really about values. Pentacles relate to earth energy, including, actual money and possessions and one's body. But the perfect example of how it transcends this is if you look at Taurus, which is the second house in astrology. It's the house of earned income, your possessions, and your values. So one of the ways that this plays out is everything that you're aspiring to materially, you're also holding values that inform that desire to achieve certain things. And also, come to think of it, it's also can be your self-worth. And that's connected to your possessions too, because there are some people, if I see somebody's chart and they have the sun in the second house, they are someone who may identify with the money that they make and the things that they own. And it's very important to their sense of who they are. Somebody who has Neptune in the second house, not so much. They may have like a more spiritual attitude towards material resources. So these two cards are not as far out as you might think. Actually, interestingly, the Hermit is connected to Virgo, which is an earth sign. So maybe, that card relates to another person, although this is not meant to be, that mundane where it's talking about those things. It's more philosophical. But I would say with the Queen of Pentacles that we're talking about, what is really important, because sometimes, I was with another sign, I was talking about a McMansion, and joking about that. Some people, that might have been what they thought that they wanted, and that was going to make them happy, and they find out that it doesn't. So if you're in a position where, as the Hermit, you're like, maybe you're separated from a partner and you feel like you want that lifestyle where you want to have a happy home and you want to, a nice, comfortable home and you want to raise children and you feel like you're in this place. So exactly the opposite of what I've been saying. Like you feel like you're in this austere kind of a place, but what you really want is the Queen of Pentacles lifestyle. You may be putting yourself in a position where it cannot be realized because perhaps you're working too much and you're alone a lot. Maybe you're somebody who is separated and you did not want the separation. The other person wanted the separation and you find yourself kind of in exile. And you really want this. The Queen can be the mother. You really want to be that, that stay-at-home mother or whatever, you want to call it. But something is isolating you. Either you're isolating yourself or you are not in that relationship because the other person has left. And that has to be reconciled. If you have had a very negative experience in the workplace, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of Scorpios have done so. I have the sun in the 8th house, so even though I'm not a Scorpio, I think, I'm an honorary Scorpio. And I think that people who are Scorpios tend to attract a lot of kind of negative vibes from others, because one big reason is that people, I think, tend to resent those who are self-assured, who know themselves, because a lot of people don't. So they assume that you must be arrogant. But I know Scorpios, and they're not arrogant. They're just, we call it self-possessed. Not, demon-possessed, self-possessed. Meaning that they're not like all over the place. They're just, they know themselves, so they don't have to put on airs. They don't have to be ostentatious, or there's another word, and I can't think of that word. Obviously, I'm talking about phony as well, but there's another word that I'm looking for. That's a form of phoniness, like a phony type of confidence. Ugh, I can't stand when I can't think of a word. But yeah. So this may be why you have kind of like you're alone now, but maybe you can work. Maybe you want to work from home, and you want to be able to not just get by, but have a thriving business. Well, that's fine. That's possible. You can take this negative experience of, maybe betrayal from co-workers and thinking that you had or a boss, and thinking that something was going to happen that didn't happen, and turn it into something really good. One of the most inspirational aspects of this unforeseen event that we've been dealing with has been, I've been noticing business owners who have been who's overnight were not allowed, at least where I live, to allow people to, like, I'm talking about like cafes, not allowed people to sit in their cafes and create all these amazing offers and other types of ways of working around this, instead of just saying, oh, we're closed, that's it. And that really inspires me, because I think that being able to always respond to what is around you is so crucial. I think one thing, if I really am high on Scorpios, but one thing that I would say is that you can't be rigid, and especially if you have Mercury in Scorpio, you can't get locked into this certain mentality, because then it can be hard for you to change. it can be very hard for you to like be flexible enough to handle like a new circumstance arising, sometimes overnight, you know. Advice, a Four of Cups. This is about, you see the person offering something, and because, you know, your cups, it's usually on the emotional level, and the person just staring at them blank-faced. What this means is that, what this is to mean is that, especially for you, especially, is that you should always tune into your feelings and what you're feeling about a certain situation. If it's a relationship that, you know, it suggests to me that some of you may have been tolerating a relationship that was not happening, that was not something that you wanted really deep down inside, but you couldn't make that change. And so the change was made for you. And the other person may have made that change. And they were just reflecting what was inside of you. If you were indifferent to that relationship, and maybe they could sense it. And let's say they did have an affair. Sometimes this has nothing to do with that other person, why you were indifferent. Maybe this is a constant emotional state of flatness. You know, maybe it's not full-blown depression, but that type of what do they call that? Ennui? The only reason I know that word, it's ENNUI, is because I used to do crossword puzzles, and that would be one of the words that they would always use, because it's kind of like an antiquated phrase. I'm sure it's French, a French word, and we don't use. Those are more terms that we used in the past, I would say. But that kind of emotional flatness that permeates every aspect of some people's lives, and they kind of just mailing it in to their life. They're on automatic. And believe it or not, you know, I certainly believe that it's a form of self-protection to protect against too much emotion, so that general malaise or just kind of indifference is preferable to extreme anxiety, extreme depression, or when I say anxiety, I could say hysteria, where you feel this heightened sense of like everything is wrong in my life. So it kind of tamps down into general indifference. And even though it is something that is unpleasant, it may not be unpleasant enough to be intolerable. So you can just go with the program and keep continuing on with it. So the bottom line that I'm trying to, Scorpio, you should be honored, because your reading is the longest I've ever done for one of these. I don't know why I'm suddenly talking so much, but I think that how I would impress it upon you is that if anything puts you into this state, you should be very careful or be very wary of it, because Scorpios in general tend to be very, like I said, extreme in their opinions and emotions. So if something doesn't really grab you, chances are it's not for you. It's, it's very hard for you to modulate. I don't know if that's the right word, moderate yourself. And so you feel things very, very deeply. And you should feel things in life because you are a water sign. That's why the cups are connected to this, to a Scorpio, Pisces, and Cancer, because you're water signs. And so if a water sign is detached or what have you, that is a sign that they are not into that person, place, or thing, and they need to think about that and not just kind of endure. But making a change might be hard for you if you're a fixed sign. You know, you just don't like that having to alter everything. And the outcome, well, I should say the potential outcome, which I did pick an additional card, is the Ten of Swords. So part of it is allowing yourself to feel feelings of betrayal. Now, that is one of the worst nightmares of a Scorpio person, is being betrayed. I think, you know, sometimes I said that I don't think Scorpios are ostentatious, but I do think that there is a lot of pride, a lot of ego within the average Scorpio person. Your two rulers are Pluto and Mars, and here we have the god of war in Mars, and Pluto is very much into the sense of power, which is, to me, an ego thing. Unless it's used altruistically, in other words, where it's not about personal power. When I say personal power, we do need to enact personal power, but I'm talking about power over others. But a leader who is a selfless leader has power over others, but they're not abusing that power. That's what I mean. Or a parent. A parent can be that as well. So it can be hard for Scorpios to admit that they have been betrayed, because that feels like a sign of weakness. I remember reading someplace that Scorpios despise weakness in themselves and others, and this can lead to, there's like a ruthlessness. This can lead Scorpio to put on that facade of being invulnerable. But inside, they may feel those feelings. But that might scare you, that might make you feel out of control. So with the Ten of Swords, it's being able to purge those feelings of betrayal, because not only does it might make you feel vulnerable, but there's that sense of abandonment, the fear of abandonment that comes up sometimes with Scorpio, which is why that suspicion that, you know, where have you been? I tried calling you and I couldn't get an answer mentality. And in the workplace, the same thing. You know, I entrusted you with my secrets and you betrayed me. So that already sense of distrust, I never know, is it mistrust, distrust, or are both of those valid? With the Four of Cups, that was one thing I wanted to note. If you were in a job where you were not happy in that job, and so you're bitching about it to coworkers, oh crap, now I said another cuss word. YouTube is now requiring us to, you know, so that we can get monetization, to note if we have any kind of profanity in our videos. So it's a whole rigmarole. I might try to see if I can get away with it. But anyway, I'll just see what happens. I'm not going to lie. So it'll keep me on the straight and narrow. But anyway, this is something that will free you, actually. And also, if you admit it to yourself. Also, with the Ten of Swords, it's about understanding that the worst has already happened, and now you are on an upswing. And, you know, sometimes it's hard to believe that if you've been going through the dark night of the soul. I just, you know, it's funny. I remember when I was in my 40s, I remember that I did not like my 40s. Remember there was a saying, life begins at 40. That was at a time when 40 was so old. But even though 40 was not that old, when I turned it, I felt like it. And I never cared about age. But it just felt like everything was so far in the past. There wasn't that sense of midlife crisis. And then I read something, and there were just different phases that I went through that were kind of mourning phases. But it was very dark. It felt very, very dark. And I remember having this thought, what if those past experiences that I felt so happy compared to now, what if that is the best that there was in my life? And being a Sagittarian, I just could not imagine that. Some of you maybe the Hermit is your dark night of the soul. That's why maybe I felt called to tell the story. It's not just to hear myself talk. But the bottom line is that I read somewhere that the average person feels at their lowest point at the age of 46. And at that time, I think I was like 44, so I had a couple of years to go, but that instantly freed me because I realized that I wasn't alone. I think that was part of the problem, is that I thought that everybody else was just blissfully happy and I was in this state that I felt was very dark. And it instantly freed me. I was 46. Of course, when I was 46, then I really felt better. And then when I was 48, I came up with the idea of going on YouTube. And that changed the whole trajectory of my life. And not that I'm like some big YouTube star or anything like that. It doesn't have to be that way. That's what I'm getting at, Scorpio. I go back to the Hermit. I love the Hermit. I prefer the Hermit to the Queen of Pentacles if the Queen of Pentacles is a woman who owns a McMansion. I don't want that for my life. My dream is a little cottage. That's all that I care about. I just care about a refuge from the world that I can call my own. Maybe that's how you feel. And maybe you feel trapped in something that where you feel a sense of lack, but you think that you think that the Queen of Pentacles means that it has to be something opulent, and it doesn't. Actually, this can also be connected to the earth. And maybe that's our nature. Maybe that's something that is much more where you need to be, instead of looking at it from just the dollars and cents. But here is that additional card that I picked, the Eight of Pentacles. And this is about, financial power. So don't think that I'm asking you to go out with a begging bowl, not on your life. But I do think that with the Eight of Pentacles, we're also talking about perfecting a craft. And maybe this is something that you've always wanted to do, but you talked yourself out of. Maybe this has nothing to do with material, aspiring to material power. It can be the number 8. There we go. Number 8, that's your house. And maybe it is something to do with that for some people, but not for some kind of ego thing, but so that you feel more in control of your life, so that if you are working for somebody else and you do experience betrayal, that you don't feel like you're required to, your life ends, or you have to, be in a position where you don't have what you need. That's why learning a new skill, that could be associated with the Eight of Pentacles. And perhaps that's what you can be doing now, to make yourself feel more in control. But remember that the ultimate control is coming from your mind. Your mind guides. Well, it guides you, but it also informs how you view reality. You create your own reality, ultimately. Obviously, we're co-creators, so, somebody else's co-creation is going to definitely impact my life, and vice versa. So, in any case, I don't know how many are still with me, but thank you for watching. And if you'd like a personal reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.